Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Virtual Experiments. My name is Andrew Scriver. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the sixth of this season's experiments presented by Potato Cakes Digital with support from the Associated Designers of Canada, funded primarily by the Canada Council for the Arts. I'm one of the creators of Potato Cakes Digital, multimedia design company, as well as one of the original curators of Level Up, along with my fellow potato, Emily Susanna, our friend and collaborator, T. Aaron Gruber of the ADC Board of Directors. Now, although these experiments are open to anyone internationally, I'd like to acknowledge that Potato Cakes Digital is coming to you today from Tiohtià:ke, which is the unceded Kanien'kehá:ka territory colonially known as Montreal. We'd like to invite you all to share what land you're on today in the chat. So Emily's going to throw a link in there to nativeland.ca, which is a tool to help identify on which nation's land you're residing. Tiohtià:ke, whose name loosely translates to where the currents meet, has long been and continues to be a meeting place for many Indigenous and other nations, including the Kanien'kehá:ka of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, Anishinaabe, which calls this land Munyang, Abenaki, and Huron-Wendat. We recognize and express gratitude towards the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Looking forward, we suggest reading the TRC's calls to action if you haven't already done so, and reflecting on how you can be a part of positive change. If you've already read the TRC, we recommend reading Reclaiming Power and Place, which is the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Emily is putting links to both of those documents in the chat for you to access later. And finally, we're going to throw a few of our favorite organizations into the chat if you'd like to make a donation. The first is the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. The second is the Unistoten Camp. And the third is Inspire, which is an organization that helps fund educational opportunities for Indigenous students. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This event can be enjoyed through auditory visual access or a combination of both. Visual access will be supported by captioning for all speakers in our archive on our website after the event. As is the case with most virtual entertainment, wearing headphones or a pair of good earbuds is the best way to enjoy this experience. So please take a moment to go and get a pair of those and put those on now if you haven't already. If you require technical assistance to support your access at any point during the event, please message Emily in the chat for immediate support. I'd also like to point out that this event and the conversation afterward is being recorded for our online archive, of course. If at any point you have any questions or issues with that, you can always message Emily during the event, or after the event, you can contact us at potatocakesdigital@gmail.com or through the Contact Us page on the Level Up website at levelup.designers.ca. All right. So for those of you who don't know, the Live Virtual Experiments are a series of virtual collaborations between creators from across Canada and around the world. We've curated groups of 4 and prompted them with images, poetry, sound bits, and then sent them on their way to come up with something which is presented live, however the groups choose to interpret that term. We've created a space for these artists to try new things and sometimes fail, hopefully learn from their experiences, and learn about creation in virtual space. Each group has about 2 months of lead time and about 30 hours or so in which to create together. These experiments began with the Level Up Symposium in January and February of 2021, and they've now grown to something that we are facilitating every month for an entire year. So after the presentation, I will introduce the team members of the experiment group. We'll ask some questions and talk about their experience. And then after that, we'll open up the floor to any questions that you have. Feel free to throw those into the chat at any point. If you don't feel no, this please. So yeah, just feel free to throw those questions into the chat at any point as they pop up, and we'll get to that later. So thank you for your patience with all of that. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our 6th experiment group. So take away, Group 6.
Water. Bodies of water. Spectrums of water. Still water. Running water. Falling water. Human need versus technological needs. Physical and digital space. Elemental gateways to access. Visibility and representation. Inaccessibility and gatekeeping. Breaking the bounds of gender and identity performativity. Breaking the body to assimilate to the digital realm. Avatars. Androgyny. Visibility. Representation. Performance. Assimilate yourself into this blank space state. Artificial scarcity. Environmental degradation. Land scarcity. Protection of natural resources. The right to access. Communalism. What does a community-based identity look like in digital spaces? Paradox of being alone and together, intimate and vulnerable. VR as the culmination of capitalist individualist ideology, experiencing a reality that is cut off from your circadian rhythms without direct personal connections, flattened experience. Accessibility to digital spaces. Access to technological platforms. Access to basic human needs. Advocacy. Webcams, algorithms, artificial intelligence, technological advancement, water, housing, food, environmental degradation, AI, water, Wi-Fi, food, human needs versus technological needs, disparate spectrum of technological access in developed countries, a spectrum of privilege in terms of who really has access. For whom are digital spaces being created? The eyes, we were looking black. The experience of being in a new space. space, time, time, space, speed of light, embodying space.
Singularity. Singularity. Singularity.
All right. Thanks a lot, Group 6. That was amazing. So now that you've presented, I will take a moment here to introduce all of our team members and give them a bit of a second to switch over so that they can join the other room and then join us here live. First off, in our team, we have Joshua Doerksen, who's a digital creative and multi-instrumental electronic looping artist. He's a graduate from the University of Guelph for classical music and vocal performance. He has since had a distinguished career as a music producer, sound designer, composer, and a visual artist. So welcome, Josh. Next up, we have Lebogang Disele, who is a theater maker with a focus in movement, acting, directing, and dramaturgy. She's currently an artistic associate at Mile Zero Dance and is a mentee in the Citadel Theater's RBC Horizon Emerging Artist Mentorship Program. Welcome, Lebo.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tyson Houseman, who is a Nahiyao interdisciplinary video artist, performer, puppeteer, and music video director. Along with producing his own time-based media works, Tyson is a touring performer and a puppeteer on various multimedia productions created by the DJ Kid Koala, and he spends his summers working as a company member with the Bread and Puppet Theater. Welcome, Tyson. And last, we have Joliz de la Peña, who is also known as JDP 2009. It's an interdisciplinary artist from the Philippines, currently based in Chichage. She's a self-taught artist whose mediums include painting, performance art, and alternative photography. Although her mediums of practice constantly vary, the focus of her work predominantly explores the discomfort of social constructs among people of color. So welcome, Joliz. Do we have everybody? Oh, well, we got most people. We got 2 people. Takes time. It always takes time. The coming out of the introductions, coming out of the show. There's always so much backstage. So all good, all good. But yeah, we'll give it a second then. That was great work. Thank you very much for being a part of this and for sharing this with us. That was awesome. Still waiting on 2 members. 1 member, Joliz. That's all right. Why don't we just get started with Lebo and Tyson? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your process, how things have been getting to this point, how you enjoyed the experience. Lebo, why don't we start with you?
What has our process been? Our process has been making something out of nothing. Literally. So it's been a real process of discovery, which really and I think we really took the time to kind of like let the project evolve and lead us somewhere. We came in really not knowing what we wanted to do or what to do.
Issues on my end.
Okay.
I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now. There. Perfect.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
What did you
start that again? I heard none of that. I apologize. I missed all of that. I thought it was on my end.
Sorry, I said okay. I was saying that our process has been a real process of discovery. Yeah, of making something out of nothing, really. We came in kind of like really open-minded, no clue what we wanted to do, and just kind of like went with the flow until we found something. So it was really good and generative in that way, but also kind of nerve-wracking because all too soon it was April and we were like, what are we gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common experience with the experiments so far. But how did you what led to the water conversations and the water theme?
I'll jump in. We were talking a lot about AI, virtual reality, the metaverse, and those kind of digital realms. And a conversation came up about privilege and access and being able to actually experience those things, and how sort of this idea is emerging that Wi-Fi is a right. um, and it got us talking about um, the juxtaposition of real reality being accessible. We are organic beings, we require water. To some extent, water is the thing that allows us to experience real reality. And in fact, water mixed with technology destroys that technology's reality. So we kind of started talking about some concepts in and along those lines. And this theme emerged: analog versus digital, reality versus virtual or not artificial, and then water versus Wi-Fi. And from there, something started to blossom.
Amazing. So in terms of the what Was there any of the prompts that, because I know we prompt all the groups and we always say like you can do whatever you want with them. Was there anything in particular that kind of helped guide things, or was it just totally group conversation?
I'll take that one. The prompts were great because we kind of, through our process, were able to come and go and revisit the prompts. And, at first they would inspire something and then we would move off from that and really get theoretical and critical in our own discussions and figuring out what we wanted to do. And then when we were somewhere far off, we would then revisit the prompts and then get re-inspired by something else. And so they kind of helped as like a little backbone throughout the entire process. And then even in the end, there's ways in which I look at the piece and I think like, oh, like one of the prompts is a looking glass with an eye peering through it, which is, as a piece of composition is just this spherical thing, which is very apparent in what we ended up doing too.
Yeah. There was clearly moments of the piece where the round part looked exactly like an eyeball, like very clearly like an iris. I just absolutely love that. That was really great. And so how are things broken up? What did the group, like, what did each of you do? And how did you come to on those decisions?
That's challenging. It was a lot of sort of circling around what platform was going to best suit the piece before we even decided on roles or kind of what each of us would bring collaboratively. We had tried stuff in VR. We had had other conversations about other platforms. And so I think finally, when we sort of started to see a concept emerging, um, ideas just sort of began kind of popping out, and we were very much just experimenting and exploring together. And I think naturally we all kind of fell into the certain roles. If anybody else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I think that about covers the process. And then everybody also kind of like played to their strengths and their curiosities as well. And then some things just kind of happened as we were improvising, trying to find a thing, and it was like, oh, we like that, so keep that. Yeah.
I think we on our first meeting we listed everything that we want to do and what our interests are, and throughout the like exploration, yeah, we have like challenges and roadblocks, especially like the digital platform. But what I enjoyed a lot is we keep coming back on our notes, and we're like pipelining everything from like one thing to another, and at the end it all makes sense. And it's like I really really like the piece that we did. Like my smile is like ear to ear. Does I'm like excited. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nice cohesive piece, I have to say, all things together. Can we talk about the like the specifics of how some of this was done? I think that's like, I mean, we obviously know on the back end how these things were done, but for our audience's sake, like what are the pieces that put this together?
So like Joliz was saying, like we started off like talking about what we wanted to do. And then from there, we tried to identify a few platforms that we could use that were pretty low entry, had few barriers to entry. Altspace was one of them. OBS, Video Ninja, I think came up a little bit later. So then it was like, okay, let's go try it and see what it looks like. So we tried Altspace, and then it was okay, but not quite. It didn't quite get us to the point, to the thing that we were trying to get at, which was we wanted to create a world. We wanted to create a sense of a world, and we wanted to have some sense of liveness and being in space together. So we couldn't quite figure that out on Altspace. And then I think we reached out to y'all. We're like, okay, how can we do this? And then you recommended Video Ninja and OBS. And then we tried Video Ninja and OBS, and it was pretty dope, actually. Like, our first experiment was amazing, and we're excited, and we thought, yeah, we've got it. And then OBS crashed.
Many times.
Many times.
Yeah.
Good.
It crashed, and then we're like, oh, maybe we don't got it. So then we were like flip-flopping, going back and forth between whether we should keep trying OBS, try to find another platform. But Emily came to the rescue and helped us figure out how to stop OBS from destroying worlds. That's how we started to refer to OBS. Actually, it was the destroyer of worlds. So Emily helped us figure out how to not let OBS destroy our worlds, and then we built on from there. So a lot of it came from discussion, honestly, and then figuring out a theme. So we know, when we settled on the idea of water and talking about water, and kind of like environmental awareness and things like that, then then we started talking about, okay, can we show water? How do we show water moving? Can we make water move? How do we make water move? Can we, and things like cymatics, can we show sound? How do we visualize sound? And this is where the last bit came in. So it was really kind of like discussion, and then trial and error, and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and what we like and what we don't like.
Amazing.
I think we have like a checklist, and from the very beginning, we sort of like have like our, again, what we want to show. Like I remember like Josh bringing up like activism, which I really like. Do we like have a political stance? And like with the like water as a privilege and Wi-Fi as a privilege is like really like that's like check my checklist, and like analog to digital also check my checklist, and like all of these things that we were just like contemplating, and like we have a lot of like introspections, especially like when we sat down with the theme of water. Like we're thinking like, how do we show like the flow, and how does that interact with like our voices, and um like with sound, with noise, with like frequency, vibration. We even like thought of like like taking away our, like, the audience's vision, and just like merely like having sound, like as a presentation, and vice versa. So yeah, it's a lot of conversations, and that's how this piece is conceived.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say one thing. There was an aha moment when we realized we want to speak into water in like virtual reality, basically, or some sort of form of a digital realm. And just to echo what Joliz said, tying back the ideas of digital signals and analog signals and really vibrating water, and kind of having the voice of water spoken into a digital place, I think was something that really was sort of a pivotal moment where the project started to take a direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. And so the water vibrations that you were creating. Want to talk a little bit about the actual tech that went into that?
So it's basically cymatics, which is vibrations, and like the patterns they create is based on how low or high the frequency is. The tech that came into it is pretty much just a speaker membrane. So it's like this plate here attached to a bowl, and it has to have a contact so it will resonate the vibration. So that's how I was able to capture the different patterns. And like I was playing around with the sound that Josh is making, and also like how Lebo was enunciating the words during the performances. Like this performance is very like touchy-feely sort of thing with my approach, and that's pretty much it. Like I just have like a tone generator on my phone that is accessing the different pitches and frequency. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is this something that you've worked with before? Or is this this was a first time experiment with you that you wanted to try out?
I actually tried doing this on a larger scale, and it didn't work. Like the project failed actually, but this time it actually worked because it's easier to capture the different patterns when you just have a webcam. Because I was trying to actually have the patterns reflected on a like a wall or surface,
Okay.
but just that's impossible.
Yeah.
But this one's success. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this worked out really well, and and again, it's a really great combination of like something that's truly analog, just putting sound waves through water, and then like connecting it onto a digital sphere. It's really great, and then you can just play with it live, which is amazing. It's great. So then, in terms of the whole process, like, what was did you each have like a favorite discovery and something that that you want to take forward into the future when you're doing other kind of virtual works, digital or in person as well?
Yeah, for me, the being able to exist together in a digital space and collaborate together, however that meant, which for us, it meant trying a lot of different platforms, like Lebo was saying, trying to exist in VR together. But for me, the thing that was the most inspiring and the most exciting was it was really simply the being able to do the live overlays using OBS of all of our different screens on top of each other and setting the opacity so that there's room for us to play. There's room for different visuals to be present at the same time. To me, that's stuff that I work with a little bit in using puppetry and video, and kind of using the idea of like darkness as a green screen, which is kind of what I employed for this. I was doing hand puppetry, I guess, and using my black hoodie as the main background and stuff like that. But to me, it's like a simple idea of having multiple people sharing one screen or one, compositional image space that lends itself to like so many possibilities. And when we started experimenting with that, when we finally got OBS working and we were able to get everybody overlaid on top of each other, I was kind of using my hands as a placeholder, and then immediately we were all like, hey, wait, this actually looks really interesting. And then it ended up sticking from there.
Yeah. It's amazing that how simple things often land, especially with something that's just like hands and sweater. And then they end up being like the best choice because it's easiest to get into, and then you can get like a lot. I mean, people have been using hands for performance for hundreds of years, so yeah, it's great. Yeah. What about you, Lebo?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, just to jump off what you just said about the hands, I felt too it brought this like human part, like it represented humanity in the space, and I think that so much of the things we talked about had to do with humanity's relationship to technology, and I think that the hands were a really great way to represent that in the piece.
Yeah, if you'd taken them out and had the spectrum and the water and just those objects by themselves, it could have been something that was created like entirely digitally, that it wouldn't necessarily have had that like tangible quality to it. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I think I echo a lot of what Tyson said, because I think we were the two that were like, okay, we need to figure out how to be in space together, even though we're not allowed to meet. And in our first iteration, actually, when we first tried OBS, Tyson played one of his earlier films with an actual puppet, and I was improvising with trying to dance with that puppet, so trying to position myself to be able to dance with the puppet. So I definitely liked that about that, like figuring out how to be together apart. But also I liked the simplicity, right? The idea. It's more of a lesson than anything, like keeping it simple and then layering it on. And I think one thing that we haven't mentioned was that, you know, we had all of these ideas in terms of what we could do, but at the heart of it also, we really wanted to we wanted the performance to be accessible. And that's where some of these ideas about making more water move, visualizing sound, et cetera, came from, right? So that you know, if somebody is hearing impaired, then they've got a visual that they're looking at. They're seeing something happen on the screen. They're not, and if somebody is like visually impaired, they've got the sound aspect to hear that, right? So that it's kind of like reaches a broad spectrum of people. So that's one of the things I think I would also like to take away, like thinking about what it means to make work accessible, performance art, or the performing arts accessible, including being live and digital at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well,
Yeah, I'll go.
Josh.
I wanted to say that we also kind of derived text. You said you're saying what did we use from the prompts that inspired us? And
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing for me that really stood out in this process was we did a lot of contemplation and philosophizing and deeply discussing and putting post-it notes all over the walls, if you will, the virtual walls. And I feel like it allowed us to really identify themes and connections unexpectedly. And what ended up, you know, being in the final piece was taking all of those conversations, and we documented everything as we went, and then deriving text from all of that documentation in the same way that the sort of AI poem is derived from inputted text. So
Mm-hmm.
we directly took that and applied it into our work. And for myself, the thing that I think I want to carry forward is just how much discussion and exploration was had in terms of just putting things out, and somehow it ends up trickling all through into the final product, whether or not it's very specifically identified. It's all kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, sometimes you kind of only, you know, get tunnel vision with like, this is what we want to do and like these ideas only. But I think the fact that we really opened it up to a wide spectrum of concepts, it really allowed us to sort of naturally distill into something unexpected, but that had all of the core elements in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to carry that process forward in future works.
Great. Yeah, I'd say it's really always amazing, like how this kind of we sort of start these things off with like a little bit of one going one direction or the other, where you're like, do we actually want to give very clearly like these are prompts that you just need to this needs to be the theme of your piece, or do you just go whichever direction and let yourself sort of feel it out? But then as you look back, if you just remain open to it, looking back on the process, like everything's kind of worked itself in really nicely. And I find that with like most of these experiments, it's like we have an idea from the start and we talked through it. And then when you look back on it, you're like, oh, these are actually, it's been there since the beginning. We just stayed open to it. You know, we weren't trying to work towards something in particular, but this is what we came to. And artists have this really interesting way of just like when you're like not given a particular job, you're not like given like a particular specific requirement, that the work that comes out is, I think, is much more full and much more beautiful, I think, in the end. So yeah, thank you. what about you, Joliz?
I agree to all my group mates like sayings, and but I really enjoy the spectralizer.
Hmm.
I think it like really interacted a lot with the thematic. Um, how do I say it? It's like if the audience didn't know, it's like a webcam like pointing down on a bowl of water with like a speaker, vibrational speaker attached to it. Like it looks digital, and the spectralizer, it's like something that I want to like kind of create. It's like I think thematics was brought up or like re-brought up again when I say like, hey, what if our voices like triggers something like the depths and like frequency and like pitches of our voices, because like every human doesn't sound the same. And like I just want to, I think, explore a little bit onto that and like create like a software maybe that or like not even a software, just uh like a device that can translate like our voices into something that is like our the vibrational aspect of our voices into something visual.
Hmm.
So I'm really interested with that, and I want to explore more of that.
Hmm. Amazing. So the spectralizer, what is that? Do we have where did you find that? What is this? What is the tool?
Yeah, it's from I started looking for Chrome experimental Chrome applications specifically. I was just Googling actually audio spectralizers first. And then I came across the Chrome experiments from, I don't know, 2013, maybe even. There's a whole series of experiments of developers making things for people to play with. And in that collection of 200 plus effects and pieces and beautiful works of art, there were a few audio responsive sound visualizers, and we stumbled across this one in particular, which had an aesthetic that we all liked.
Hmm. Yeah, amazing. They look super cool. I want to check out these experiments after. But it's funny because I was looking at it when you originally posted it. I was like, oh well, that's like something that I would have built in Touch Designer. And I was like, that's just like one of those tools, right? That's like Touch Designer or Isadora, these things that already exist that like have really great built-in like audio reactive tools for creating that kind of work. Um, but it's really neat that just something like that like already exists and has like the something that you could find and use and has the like the same aesthetic that you're working with, which is really great. Um, but yeah, highly recommend if this is something that you're interested in working with, Joliz, is like looking into playing around with Touch Designer, because it's something that like they have it's pretty easy to take in audio input and then start like creating something that can come out sort of like that, and the kind of the possibilities are sort of endless, and you don't have to do like a whole lot of coding, which is really what's great about it.
That's the failed thematic project
Oh, is
that I
in
was
Touch
actually
Designer?
doing. It
I
was
was
with
just
the
gonna
Touch Designer.
Fair
say,
enough.
Yeah, with the Touch Designer, and we had like it's like a AR like a controller
Mm.
with your hands, and it just like me and my collaborator was about to perform it live, and it like all of our works was like shut
I'm sorry, I
down,
shouldn't laugh. That's
so we
not
weren't
funny.
able to show it.
Yeah, that's not funny. I
Just
shouldn't
like
laugh at your failed project.
it's technical difficulties,
Yeah,
and
for sure. Nothing is foolproof, right? Like everything can
yeah,
you can work on a show for a very long time,
yeah.
and it's like it works. Everything works right up until the time you're right before opening, and then something just goes like the program just decides
Yeah.
it doesn't want to work anymore. Um, yeah. So I mean I'll still stand behind Touch Designer. It was one of those things that like we also just used it recently in a show, and we had like everything was working great until something wasn't, and the computer just hiccups. Like these things happen, but you can always find that's bad timing then. But it's great. If anybody in the audience has any questions, you can feel free to throw those in the chat at this point, and we can ask those. Um, but if you don't, I can continue on with like asking like, so what was the hardest part of this process for you, each of you?
I'm sure there are other challenges people can mention, but one of them for sure, which actually tied into a lot of what our conversations were centered on, was um, both technological difficulties in access and internet difficulties in
Mhm.
access. Um, Throughout the project, we'd have like we at first I started using OBS, but that was when OBS was the destroyer of worlds, and a combination of my computer not being powerful enough and my internet being in a precarious state. I would sometimes I'd be in my apartment in Montreal. Other times I would be on a farm at a farmhouse where the internet, which I thought was stable, was actually very unstable. But we ended up using that to our advantage. I think this was an exciting opportunity to really embrace ideas or concepts like internet, like latency and delays when you're collaborating with performers, which usually are considered like a no-no. Like you want to solve those as much as possible. But it was very liberating to approach slow internet connections and choppy pixelated images as something that we want to run head forward into and want to embrace and want to just allow into our project. And it's actually like very relieving and yeah, very nice.
Amazing. And so are you on the farm right now?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how pixelated I look right now, but yeah, I am.
You look great to me. It's all fine. Yeah. What about everyone else? Any other challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think it was definitely the trying to figure out how to be together apart. Because and it was a little anxiety inducing because I think we were trying to find a platform, and for a while there it seemed like we were not going to be able to accomplish that, and that made it difficult for us to figure out what we were going to do, right? So it was like, okay, does content inform form, or does form inform content, right? And we were like, we really couldn't visualize what to talk about, quote unquote, because we didn't know what platform we were going to be using and how it would look. So because we couldn't figure out what we didn't know what to work towards. So it was difficult to figure out what to talk about, what our content could be. And up until we figured out our issue with OBS, like it was like start, stop, take 2 steps forward, take 2 steps back, kind of situation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think that most of the time when I'm working on shows, when you're like, we know what the show is going to be, you know what the story is. That you're often like, pick the tools. The most important thing is to pick the tools that support that story. But when you're working in a creation space where you don't finally know exactly what it is that you're going to be performing, it can be better for the team if you start off with something like, this is a tool that we like and it works. So what can we create out of this? And so I think that it certainly did work out in your favor. So, Josh.
I think too, just to tie into that, in so many settings, the tools are kind of standardized, so it's very, when I do a theater show, I'm probably going to use QLab. And like, I do sound first, and the lighting rigs are already installed, and things have been tried and tested, and there's a technician on hand, and so I think too, in like a lot of art, at least that I've been a part of, um, the tools are kind of already implied, and so you don't even really think about those. You just focus on content only. And I think, just to add to what Lebo said, like, we really couldn't move forward in understanding how to best represent the concepts we had talked about until we had explored virtually and done a bunch of experiments with a bunch of tools.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think for myself too, what surprised me just working in sound was sound on multiple platforms was challenging for me on this, just because routing sound from multiple sources live from different webcams and the cymatic bowl, and then my setup, which was complex, and having 3 different cameras and an OBS feed, and and just even sound in other platforms too. It surprised me how many elements there were to consider to just kind of get a composition to function and have visual and audio represented too. I think signal flow is, funny enough, something we talked about in our first conversation, and all of the signal flows, like, that became a very technical challenge to manage. And thankfully we finally got it figured out.
Mhm. Mhm. Amazing. Anything else to add, Joliz?
I think everybody
okay,
has
maybe
said
not.
it, so that's it.
That's fine. Great. Perfect. Well, we did have one audience question, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
no.
No. I wasn't sure who said this, but breaking the body to assimilate to a digital realm is such a powerful statement. How does this statement reflect your experience?
We lost
For
Joliz.
me,
We just lost Joliz.
I think we lost Joliz. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Hopefully they can come
She's
back.
been assimilated to the digital realm.
It's like perfect timing. Oh well.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I think for me it was that experience was most acute in when we tried yikes words alt space, when we tried alt space.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have, myself, Tyson, and Joliz didn't have headsets, so we were just using
Hmm.
the app, and then we were just using our keys to control. So coming from a movement background, that was the first thing. Where originally I thought I'd be improvising maybe to something that Josh composed or something, I don't know. And then getting into the space, and we're like, oh, we're in space together. And then it's like you can only move your head, really, like and you only have like down to your torso is what the avatar is. So there was that kind of like this disembodied this disconnection to yourself in the world, in the digital realm, and yourself outside.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting as well, just when you're talking about like accessibility of this piece, if you were like trying to do something with VR, but only one person actually has like a VR headset, that's really also going to make things a little bit more difficult for the team. Um, but yeah, it's interesting when you're supposed to be they create these spaces, something like alt space VR, where it's supposed to be like it's meant to be, taking yourself and putting yourself completely into the digital realm, but then your person actually only has no feet, has like only partial arms. It's kind of a disjointed sort of thinking, because you're not actually putting your full self into it, even though like your brain is in it, but your body isn't. It's some interesting kind of weird connotations there. We are coming up on the last of our couple of our minutes before we should be wrapping it up. But does anyone else have anything they want to like share with the world about your experience, or about any shows you're working on? You can always do a shameless plug if you want to, or if there's anything about this project that you wanted to say to the world, now would be the time.
I was going to say that we had talked about potentially taking that performance and then further projecting it into virtual reality to sort of keep the fractal going. And
Yeah.
so that's something that could be a really interesting way to present, you know, a future iteration of it is to have what was a digital experiment, virtual experiment, then projected in a VR realm furthered. But yeah, that's a fun idea that we had talked about.
Mhm. As a person who has a virtual reality headset and enjoys being in VR, I would love to like exist inside of the cymatic bowl, just as like a 3D thing, like constantly around you. That would be super cool. Just throwing it out
In
there.
our first experiment, we were playing with spherical cameras, so in VR, and so the idea is you could map that circle onto a spherical camera and experience that, being inside of the orb, which would be pretty cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, for me, I think it'd be really cool to. I'm just speaking this out into the universe, but it'd be really cool to see if we could take this performance forward somehow, in some way. And now that we've got our technological footing, like how else we could play with it is the thing that I've been curious about. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think I'm the most technophobic of the whole group. So I was just like, oh my gosh, why did I do this? But I'm really glad that it worked out. I think it's been great to have a space like this to experiment and to try and fail and try again and fail again until you get some semblance of success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, we have one in every group. We tried to focus that like one technophobe, throw them into virtual creation and just see what happens. But yeah, well, we're 100% behind you continuing to do this project. Figure it out. We will support you in whatever way we can. Amazing. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no worries. I just was going to say that I wanted to echo everything that Lebo just said as well about the experience and appreciating the opportunity to explore different ways in which you could combine and blend analog and digital ways of disseminating something. I try and embrace digital formats, but to be completely honest, I'm pretty technophobic as well, at least in how I think about those things critically. So this just ended up being such an amazing opportunity, and really felt like just the right blend of bringing in everyone's different skills, bringing in analog and digital, blending it all together. It's really cool.
Okay.
I just want to say I love my group mates. Um, that's all. Like, this is really really amazing. Like, I didn't know I'm gonna be doing this till like I jumped into this experiment. I was like, I came in here with an open mind, and I don't know, it's just great that we were able to like do something. And even if we didn't like succeed or like we failed, like it doesn't matter. Like, I met all you guys.
Huzzah. Amazing. Amazing work, everyone. This is really great. And I'm glad that it was a success and that you got to try things and do some new things. And it's amazing. It was all very well put together. So congratulations. Take now, we'll say goodbye. So thank you, and I'll thank everybody. But thank you all to all of our experimenters. Thank you, team. Great work again. And I want to thank everyone, audience members, all of you who came out to watch. And as well, I want to thank our live team as well, Victoria Wang, Juan Velasquez, Sarah Mania, my other potato, Emily, and of course, again, our audience, thank you for coming out, supporting creative expression, experimentation, and discussion. So if you enjoyed this event, as I mentioned at the start, we are hosting these experiments. We have 3 more left, the last Thursdays of the next 3 months. And you can sign up on our website, of course, levelup.designers.ca/live virtual experiments. And you can come and check out the other experiments. And hopefully, you know, the projects will continue in some form or another after this is all done. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. Have a great night. Keep experimenting out there. Bye-bye.